Today I'm going to show you all the steps needed to make a box just like this, using just scrap cardboard from all the boxes you get in the mail. And instead of throwing it in the garbage, you can make some really nice gift boxes. These are just corrugated cardboard cut from cardboard boxes, all your Amazon shipments and everything else. If you want to know details on how I cut this up, you can watch one of my other videos. Let me know in the comments below if I've left something out, and I'll try to explain in more detail. I'm going to try to keep this one quick. For measurements, this box is about 13.5 centimeters by 10.5 on the base. I keep the two long sides the exact same, so I cut them together. And then for the short sides, you'll notice they're a little bit smaller than the base. And the reason for that is I subtract the thickness of the walls. So if you take these two walls, that thickness is cut away from these. So then when you go ahead and assemble this, it'll all line up on the outside. Okay? What I'm using is corrugated cardboard just to give it thickness and the base structure. And then I'm going to wrap it. Before I wrap it with paper, I'm going to wrap it with just a thin chipboard. You can get this from cereal boxes or other things you have left over. The benefit of this is it's smooth, where the corrugated has these little ripples that'll show up in the final finish unless you flatten it out. If you have chipboard that's thick enough, you can skip this step. Most people have more of these in all the packages they get than the other material. And try to remove any, if you've got tape and stuff like that. If you get rid of it, it'll glue a little better. Just be careful peeling it off so you don't peel off the top layer of the actual cardboard. You don't want tape because glue won't stick to it. For glue, you can use regular glue-all type glues. Try not to use the school glues because they have more water in them. So a regular, everyday type of glue, or you can use PVA glue, which is going to give you a stronger bond, especially on coated type papers, glossy papers. This usually holds most of them, where this might dry and then peel right off again. So you can economize by using this for the bulk of it, and use a little bit of this in areas where it's a little more important. Or if you're doing something really special, you can use this for the whole box. All right, so for the box itself, you can apply glue and start assembling it. I have a bunch of these corner blocks. They're magnetic and they help hold pieces together. So these ones, along the base, like that, and then I can do my glue assembly and they'll just kind of hold things in place for me while it's drying, just to speed things up. You don't need any of this if you don't have these tools. Don't worry about it. This is just for convenience. All right, so today I'm going to go ahead and use this kind of glue for most of my assembly. I do recommend you keep some kind of scrap paper so you don't get glue all over your work area. You don't have to be super careful on any of this. Long side, we don't put any glue on the ends. On the short sides, we will. Okay, and I do have this little brush. You can also do this. It's put a little glue down and use some kind of brush to brush it on. That'll help actually kind of get more of the surface. So if you prefer doing it that way, it might actually speed things up a little bit. So go ahead and bring this in. The short pieces, it's okay to do the ends on because they're not going to touch over there anyway. So I can bring this in, get my piece. This side isn't going to touch until this piece is in. So these are still loose, just on the bottom. I know a lot of people like to use hot glue. Hot glue is actually a little harder to control, and this will give you a nice clean finish, and when it's dry it's going to be rock hard. It will not leave, it won't have any thickness buildup, so all your joints, everything will be a lot cleaner than they will be with hot glue. So I put these in, and I can use one of these over here. So just press everything on all sides just to make sure nothing is shifted, nothing is lifting up. There you go. So all the pieces are kind of held together. While that is starting to harden, let's go ahead and cut up our chipboard to fit. I'm going to cut it lengthwise, and I'm going to wrap it so it goes from the bottom up the side and over the top, and it kind of reinforces all these joints, brings them together. The total width is now 10.5. 10.5. So I'm going to have a little bit of overlay across the top because I want to hide those corrugations. Just going to eyeball that and say it's about that much. Try to keep this parallel. Going to put just a kind of a halfway cut in that, and then this will fold back. I'm going to try to come up with a way to simplify this so there's less measuring involved. I'm going to try to come up with some jigs. For now, I am measuring, or I could bring that box, lay it over here, and use that as a measurement. So I'm just gonna, let's make it 3 3/4, 3 3/4. Just to check. Almost 14. All right. So these score lines should fold easily. All right, let me just make sure this fits. If you have more time, let this dry longer. I'm rushing this a little bit. But you see that glue has already started to set. This is... And I got the measurements wrong. Okay, so no big deal. If you end up cutting it too tight, just cut these pieces off wherever it's too tight. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to cut these off. Glue them on separately. I'm going to use my sheet here just so I don't get glue all over my work area. I'm going to get a nice even coat on this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can put some on. I'm looking for a thin coat. You don't want a crazy heavy coat, because the heavier it is, the longer it takes the glue to dry, and the more likelihood the paper will get all warped and wrinkled. So a thin coat. Try to get all of the surface. And I'm not convinced these brushes are the best way to do this yet, but trying them because they're easy to wash as opposed to fiber brushes. All right, you don't want to wait too long because this will get dry patches in it. So take this, put it in here, bring the sides up, try to line it up quickly across the bottom and then the sides. And set it aside, do something else and come back a little later. You see when it's wet, it wants to just lift back off. This is why you don't want it wet. When you have less glue, just holding it in place for a little while actually lets it sort of set up and harden fairly quickly, enough that you can let go and move on to the next step. The other thing you can do, instead of using a brush, is just to use a scrap piece of cardboard or paper. It actually does a really nice job spreading glue evenly, like that. If you give time between these steps, it's a lot easier to do. Then you can really press hard. I'm going to use this to line it. So pre-fold these, it'll give you crisp lines. Check it dry. My length is too big. So gotta bring this in a little bit. Now this is important in order to get a clean finish. If you're not concerned about the finish, you can compromise on these steps, but if you want a nice clean box, you'll spend a little bit of time fitting this in properly. All right, so that looks good on the dry fit. Make sure the orientation doesn't change. Keep it in that same position. So you can do it like this if you like. Get into the corners. So not too goopy. You don't want too much, because again, it'll wrinkle the paper. So make a thin layer rather than too much. So this is more than enough. I'm going to use it to coat the sides. And on a clean sheet, take some of this excess and work it onto the sides. I made a mistake. I forgot which way the box was facing before I started gluing. It's better to mark the box so you don't have to figure it out when the glue is about to set. Here we go. And now I have a 50-50 chance of getting it wrong. keep these sides folded in. It'll make it a little less likely to stick. Let me just check. That side is loose. That side is... Alright, so maybe I'm okay. Let's just drop this into the bottom. Okay, work that out. Get the sides worked out. This part was important. Try to get that corner, and then along this side. Same here, do the sides. Go all the way to the corner. And then this way. Along the sides. Get the corner. Then this way. Last one. Now these panels are dry, so just get a little bit of, just dab a little glue on those. This glue does dry clear, so a little bit will not show, especially if you have a pattern. And then again, try to work from the bottom and come up. Smooth it out. If you don't have too much glue, it won't leave any wrinkles. And having this overlap will hide any imperfections. So from the bottom, work your way up. Any imperfections on the top will get covered up with our outer piece. So we can have some mistakes on each of these sides if you get the order of all the pieces to overlap. What I missed was putting these on. I should have done it earlier, but it's still not too late. I want to cover up the corrugation because when you wrap it, that's going to show. See a bubble here. So if you catch any bubbles forming, this is vapor trying to get out. So I didn't do a good job on the bottom. I put too much glue. The idea of using a glue bottle to put glue down is going to have more chances of that happening as opposed to using a brush and putting down a thin layer to begin with. You're getting too much moisture trapped in there. All right, there's our box. Once this glue dries, this is going to be extremely rigid and way stronger than the pieces that were used to make it. This is one of the UV printed papers, so it has a nice satin kind of finish. You can watch my other video on all these custom papers that I'm making. To check if both sides are even, you can line up the box on the edge of the sheet on one side, take a measurement, see how much paper is left over. So I have a 96, 97 millimeter. Bring it this way, and then compare how much extra you have here. So about 96, 96 and a half. And now I can trim off this small excess. This is to ensure when I fold it over, all these will overlap the same exact amount. So that amount here, 96 divided by 2, is about 48. That centers the box. Alright, put some glue across the back of this. On the outside, it is important to get a nice complete coat because it will show if you have any missing air bubbles in here. So do coat this evenly. Try not to miss any spots. And then also do try to work quickly so you can get the paper on before dry spots develop. Simply pressing it down from the other side is not enough. You have to press out any air bubbles from the bottom. Okay, once you've done that, I'm using this corner jig to line these up perfectly so the flaps this creates the right amount of fold over on these flaps. Cut that small section. Flip. This side, the long sides first, you can tuck them in. This will allow this piece to come up. If you want it to drop in nicely, cut that as well. This is actually a spot that it is better to use the PVA glue. In my case, because I have an overlap with this UV printed outer wrapper, and the normal Elmer's type glue is not going to hold. Right there, right there, That leaves only these remaining two sides. Here, you can either repeat the same process, or if you want it to look a little nicer, you can miter this. So put a little 45 here. There's the corner. From that corner, there's a flap this way. And 45 this way. So that creates the 45, and then this folds in and it'll go in the other direction. Okay, same on this corner. The corner is right there. I want a little bit of PVA here, here. There you go.